Pink Floyd has this great line, out of obscurity and into a dream. To me, that seems like a great description of what it must have been like to be an architecture school art band playing at parties to world renowned rock and roll stardom. Hello and welcome to the No Hair All Heart podcast. I'm your host, Mookie Spitz, and I'd like to rant a little bit about obscurity into dreams, coming of age of people we take for granted. Celebrities are people too. Actually, they are human, all too human. We love to revel and even gloat in their misfortunes and weaknesses, just as the ancient Greeks loved to humanize their gods and goddesses, showcase their petty jealousies and politics and rivalries as above, so below. But that begs the question of retroactively trying to understand and even put ourselves in the shoes of those who went on to become household names, their avatars repeated as memes, if you will, millions, billions of times in the minds and hearts of millions and billions of people. When you look at their stories, from pauper to prince or princess, they share certain commonalities if every story's different. For one, they're passionate people, and there's really no such thing as that overnight sensation. You usually have folks who are struggling for years, sometimes decades, doing what they love to do or doing what they feel a compulsion to do, doing it almost all the time, and doing it in silence or at least obscurity, especially compared to their future and unassured, uncertain, never guaranteed fame. There's determination, perhaps a little bit of insanity, but the passion's there, and the motivation stretches across the gamut, no doubt. Some folks just want to be famous. I knew the singer Beck, as I've bloviated in other podcasts and in blogs, back in the mid-'80s, 1986 or so, in North Hollywood, California. And he would literally introduce himself as, I'm Beck, and I'm going to be famous. He did, really, really. And not just to me, but to everyone I saw him meet. Does he have genuine talent? Well, as I also bloviate, I was skeptical of him then. I still hear him now, and I can't help but feel he's faking it, if only because he was a 16-year-old screaming into my headphones, recording a song. We didn't quite musically mesh. I guess our tastes diverge. They continue to. But who am I to judge him? He's a multi-platinum, Emmy Award-winning, Grammy Award-winning mofo. He was best friends with David Bowie, for fuck's sakes. So clearly the kid's got talent, especially if I didn't recognize it. But the most important thing to Beck, when I knew him, wasn't the music. It was the fame. We got into an argument in a taco stand, I remember, our little taco restaurant in North Hollywood, not far from the apartment where he was squatting and the other apartment where I was living not far. And the essential argument was Beck insisted that celebrity is synonymous or can be equated with talent. That if you sell 10 million records, you are 10 million times more talented than the loser fool who has sold zero. And by extension, If you've sold 10 million records, then you're twice as talented as the one who sold 5 million records. I was like, Beck, come on. You've got geniuses in their mom's basement, and you got total losers filling stadiums. He was unconvinced. As time would tell, I guess he was right, at least in practice. Had I recognized his talent, let alone his motivation and enthusiasm, perhaps we could have recorded more songs together. Shame on me. The point, though, here is his motivation clearly, at the time, was to be famous. The mechanism for that fame was, sure, writing some songs, but I think he spent more time networking, hanging out with cool people, being influenced, being an influencer. The kid was really talented at getting in there and getting noticed in his own Beck-like emo way. And on the other end of the spectrum, you've got folks who are dedicated to their craft, obsessed by it. Quentin Tarantino at the video store in Manhattan Beach, meeting Roger Avery. They were film maniacs. That manic obsession and enthusiasm with film, no doubt translated into the random conversation that Tarantino had with Lawrence Bender, who was apparently an actor and I think even a dancer, trying to break in as a producer, and he loved what this kid had to say. Apparently at this party where they met, Tarantino was being Tarantino, going off on his own script ideas. Lawrence liked it. That precipitated reading Reservoir Dogs. Apparently that script was written phonetically, so the was written T-H-U-H, the. That didn't interfere with Larry getting Tarantino connected, the script getting to Harvey Keitel. The rest is a brilliant career in film. Look at Tarantino. Who in Hollywood has Final Cut? Nobody, except Quentin Tarantino. How the actual fuck did this guy get from the Manhattan Beach video store to being Quentin Tarantino? Well, again, it's a combination of enthusiasm, hard work, persistence, relentless determination, and especially in his case, the spark. People found his enthusiasm, his manic energy contagious, and at the very least, an indicator that this guy could make other people famous, or at least influential, and put a bunch of money in their pocket. So there you have it. Look at Anthony Bourdain. By his own admission, dipping French fries into his 40s, writing a brilliant essay, Don't Eat Before Reading This. Made it into the New Yorker. David Remnick claims that he discovered Anthony. The backstory is apparently David's wife, Effie, knew Bourdain's mom. Not kidding, look it up. Bourdain's mom got the essay to Remnick's wife, and that kind of helped get it to the top of the pile, as it were. But it's a brilliant essay. If you haven't read it, check that out. That precipitated the full-blown book, Kitchen Confidential. And by that point, turn of the millennia, Bourdain was off to the races. In other such early success, well, it wasn't early for Bourdain, but another such discovery was David Foster Wallace, who was, again, a hyper-motivated, hyper-energetic, and determined writer. So at the tender age of 24, he got The Broom of the System published. I think this was the late 80s, around the time I was hanging out with Beck. And that got him going. And that connection was basically getting his manuscript on the desk of an editor at Little Brown. And this guy liked it, felt the energy, and took the risk. Stephen King, his wife threw an early draft of Carrie into the garbage. She fished it out, told him to finish. Boom, Stephen King. Everyone knows the J.K. Rowling story, getting rejected and rejected, being a waitress, being destitute, and then finally, early draft of Harry Potter got to the 8-year-old daughter of a Bloomsbury chairman. What the actual fuck there, too? That's a break. And the little girl loved it. I love Harry Potter, and that inspired him to publish that. Bob Dylan, apparently John Hammond from Columbia, saw him play, became his advocate, even though he sang kind of funny. The list goes on and on and on. And as a common denominator, again, for whatever reason, these people are motivated. They just keep cranking content. Here's the point. Point number one, keep cranking content. I know so many people, and myself included, for years, where I would keep polishing a turd into oblivion. And especially these days with so much content, I mean, you just throw it out there. It's so easy to do a podcast, to write a blog, to post anything you want. There's an obsession with fine-tuning things still, going through official channels when it's basically a DIY content society. The algorithms decide. Throw it out there. You can't get your break if nobody knows who you are or has never seen your shit, because, frankly, you're hiding behind the fear of it not being, air quote, good enough. What the hell is good enough these days? Go to TikTok. You see people who are literally making faces, screaming at the camera, and either saying that Hillary Clinton is a pedophile or Donald Trump is Hitler, and they've got 1 million views on the video. Seriously. Is there talent there? I don't know. The algorithm likes them. You too can get a viral video. But overall, all is fair in TikTok and meme wars. You could pump out gigabytes of content and no one will give a shit. And then who knows? You get your Toni Morrison or Charles Bukowski, Zadie Smith, Kurt Cobain, Billie Eilish, Eminem, working shitty jobs. You get the demo tape to Dr. Dre, and then boom. You could be like Chappelle. Remember Chappelle from Con Air, that movie? Yeah, you too can do it, because the oldest trope, which is the newest meme, is if they can do it, so can you. Doubly, triply, quintillionthly so, when the talent is so sketchy. Why? The algorithm decides. And I think I'm sitting here ranting about this. It's late on a Wednesday night, September 23rd, 2025. And I'm putting this up as kind of a marker, just because I can. I don't know what the fates have in store for me or for the world, for that matter, but I'm a big multiverse guy. The the universal wave function keeps splitting and splitting. I can imagine a scenario where I keep cranking content and that's what I do. I can imagine another scenario where my content pops in some equally random way. And I can imagine an in-between state where I have my moments of viral glory. I've had a few videos on TikTok with 500, 600, 700,000 views and a proportional number of comments and likes and reposts. So who the hell knows? But the one thing that is true is that I've never had such a great time expressing myself. And it's never been easier and more fun. And that state change between being a passive recipient of content and actually being a content creator, the only obstacle that I can imagine at this point is fear of being exposed, fear of being vulnerable, or you've been full of shit from the beginning when you're sitting in coffee houses, sipping espresso, sipping decaf espresso, and talking about Schopenhauer. And then what? I've got friends going back to elementary school, and we were talking about writers and writing. I've got friends with advanced degrees in literary criticism. I'm not knocking them, but where's the content? And that begs the question in this age when it's so easy to create it. And now, you know where I'm going, AI is here. So it doesn't even take much work. Put in your prompt. There's Google Gemini storytelling trained LLMs. So you don't even have to think of a plot. Just think of a character. Think of an obstacle. Think of a goal. Do you want a novel? Do you want a short story? Do you want a video clip? Do you want it in the form of a 70s broadcast television commercial? Do you want it in the form of an Art Deco print or a piece of Russian propaganda? Set any parameter. Initiate any filter. Choose a style. Choose a genre. Choose a modality. Choose a hero's journey. Choose a leaflet from Middle Earth, written by a hobbit who is the third cousin of Bilbo. Whatever the fuck. It is the multiverse come to life. And what does it mean for someone who is hustling content, who is thinking this stuff through, who uses the tools to augment what's already going on in their head and heart, as opposed to just typing prompts and barfing this shit out? I had one friend who just sent me today a bunch of little video clips that she made with Gemini. And they were for various clubs that she's belonging to. And she says that all of her community members think she's this transcendent genius. And she spent years as a producer and project manager in agencies. And now she is creative director and film editor and producer. And here's the thing. I think it's awesome. I think it's absolutely wonderful that she has this creative renaissance. And I'm sitting here busting ass, trying to express my thoughts in a clear, albeit spontaneous kind of way. I spent 2 months locked up in my apartment finishing my first science fiction novel in a series after a year of fairly concerted effort to get it into a place where I could kill myself at the home stretch to get it out the door. And frankly, it was the most amazing experience of my adult life, that kind of immersive intensity. And you'd say, well, what's the damn point? If a bot will eventually do it, a bot could do it already, and it might even be way more popular than my own prose because it's programmed to appeal. But all of this is awesome, even and especially if we are the victims and opportunists of the algorithm, and especially and even if the DIY digital reality is now washed on into the very heart and soul of the creative process. I think that's great, because let's see what happens next. At every milestone moment where technology, communication technology, takes that quantum leap, be it clay tablets or the Gutenberg press or the radio, television, the internet, mobile technology, social media, and now AI, there's been a commensurate quantum leap in the human creation and consumption of content, for better and for worse. And I think that there's this inevitable expansion of consciousness realized through the embrace of possibility. We're getting closer and closer to the multiverse that we're all a part of anyway. And if you think that everything possible is somewhere real, then by expressing all of these possibilities within ourselves and through our technology, then we are getting closer to the reality, the ultimate reality from which we have been birthed. And that sounds like some bong toking, Vishnu cycling, Nietzschean eternally recurring shiznit. But yeah, I think that's cool. So bring it on. And with that, I go full circle to my own tiny, tiny world, where being lost in this tsunami of content, that Horton Hears a Who ecosystem that I've described before. We are here, we are here, I am here, I am here. Am I trying to be noticed? I don't think so, because then I'd be doing so much of a better job of creating content for the algorithms. I do not care. I create content for myself. And maybe you could say I'm being punished for my own solipsism and selfishness, my self-focus and self-absorption. But I think what's really going on here is just the joyful bloviation of someone who's had all this cooped up inside for decades. Someone who was too self-critical, just like those folks I was mentioning earlier, polishing turds, never really getting it done, let alone releasing it to the world, because, well, there's always more possibilities. See, it's the multiverse imploding on itself. If you're smart and if you're creative, one of the banes of your existence is not only seeing the glass as half empty, but you know enough to know what you don't know. And then you're asphyxiated and paralyzed, because instead of relying on your instinct and rolling with what you do know and using what you do know as a conduit for your emotional release and catharsis, you are using your mind and your will to self-edit based on the realization that you don't know everything, you can't do everything, and therefore every attempt at making that kind of communication through art, through whatever it is that you do, is always going to come up short. With every move you make, you're reminding yourself how much you suck, how much better you could do it if. But that is completely back-ass words. You got to feel it in your gut and you got to let it out. And the more you let it out, the better you get at letting it out because you care less and less about making it intellectually comprehensive, complete, consistent, and creative to the point where you can say that, oh, that's awesome. What's awesome? Who really gives a shit? Are they sitting there with a scorecard checking to make sure that you got it right? What the hell does that mean? Great stand-up comics illustrate this. I started doing little stand-up routines, putting it up on TikTok. And my first takes, I was doing a funny voice. And I was trying to be someone I'm not because I'm not a stand-up comic even when I'm standing up. And I thought that you need to get in character. But I came to the realization, it's one of the most eye-opening kinds of realization I have had, that the obvious is true. And the opposite of that, which is just be yourself. Look at all the great comics are in character. They're in their own character. And then when you have stand-up comics like that, I think his name is Charlie Friend, Matthew Friend. He does wonderful impersonations. He's like the, what was the guy's name? Charlie Rich of the old TV shows, where he does awesome impressions of Trump, political figures, commentators. He does a great Bill Maher. Bill Maher, I've noticed over the years, has picked up this tick. And since he doesn't really watch his own content, he just keeps plowing forward. He does this like lip smacking, annoying little habit. A lot of you are mad at me for having dinner with Trump. I don't think he's ever even noticed it. And this friend guy is in his face with this. And I would bet money that Bill Maher now is self-conscious of his, anyway, mirror, mirror, Bill. These impressions are wonderful to me because they highlight the individuality and uniqueness of how everyone interacts with the world and communicates. You can't help it. We've got a baseline, an instinctive baseline of how we do this. And I've got it too. And I'm in that mode now. I'm just talking out of my ass. But when I'm doing these stand-ups, I think I've gotten better at it. I've gotten better at it to the point where I do this fake backdrop, and I've got this fake plastic microphone that I got on Amazon for like $4.99. And, I do the fake backdrop in InShot, the little app. And I found that the best stand-ups now that I'm doing are, in a sense, no different than the video rants I do without the fake backdrop and the fake microphone. In other words, there's no boundary between my stand-up persona and then my usual ranting persona. And I made huge progress with my ranting persona when I realized that I didn't have to do a faux character there either. My early videos, like the one, ironically enough, that went super viral, was me in my kid's Marine t-shirt that we got when he was going through boot camp at Camp Lejeune. And I've got his Kilo Company shirt. And I'm doing kind of a public service announcement for the Kurdish people, of all things. And I'm standing there kind of like this spokesman. And it's fake and it's forced. And I really don't know what I'm doing. It was one of the first videos that I did. I'm literally in my kitchen and the lighting's wrong and the angle is wrong. And I didn't even know how to auto caption the video. So when I mentioned the Kurdish people, it's literally Kurdish. It's Kurdish. like cottage cheese. And it sucks. But here's full circle in this rant. It's my most popular video to date. I think it's at something like 750,000 views with a proportional amount of comments and reshares and likes. I literally got thousands of followers throughout the Middle East and the world based on this hackneyed, hokey, forced, artificial public service announcement I made on behalf of the Kurdish people wearing my kid's Kilo Company Marine t-shirt. The algorithm liked that one, but so did the people. You don't put a gun to somebody's head to reshare a fucking TikTok video. And since that video, I think I have recorded and uploaded 1,000 videos. I'm not kidding. I've been doing it since December of 2024. It's now September. I've been doing it for 10 months. That's like, let's say, 300 days. And I honestly think I have uploaded on average 2, at least 3 videos per day on average. So close to 1,000 videos. A handful have gone viral. And I haven't like cracked the code. So I don't have the average videos going into the thousands. I am a micro influencer. So does the algorithm ignore me? In ways, I could blame the algorithm. I have bloviated in other podcasts about what I call the wall and how AI, before it takes all our jobs and takes over the world, will actually benefit us, because there are millions of people who would really like my stuff but aren't exposed to it. And of all the platforms, TikTok actually so far has done the best job of connecting me and my content with people potentially interested in seeing my bald head and being entertained by it. But it's a nuanced, narrow sliver. And my points of view oscillate between left and right. I'm a liberal. I'm a conservative. I'm libertarian. I am analyzing things with nuance on a subject by subject, topic by topic, newsflash by newsflash basis. I'm irreverent. I'm often cynical. And here's the big thing that throws most people off, because they only watch on average 6 seconds of a video that could go on for a few minutes, is that I am satirical. So I drop words like libtard or MAGA maniac, and then the MAGA maniacs and libtards freak out when I very much might be ranting in the favor of their own warrior god. So I jump tribes. I'm all over the place. You got to read between the lines. And for all of these reasons, the algorithm does not like me. And the algorithm does not like me because I'm not sticky that way. People really don't get it because they don't devote any kind of focus or time. And I'm not calling the audience stupid and blaming the crowd for not loving my juggling act. I'm merely pointing out that I do what I do because I love to do it. And frankly, it's luxurious to bloviate in a more or less vacuum state, because I might be lacking in feedback. It's exponentially larger than when I was blogging, but I might be lacking in feedback. But at the same time, I'm luxuriating in my capacity to just keep bloviating with impunity. And I don't know how a lot of these pundits do it, where they live half their life on X, responding to trolls and getting into arguments with morons. That to me is not a good time. I find it excruciating even responding to the few comments I do get. Frankly, it's a Rorschach test of my own tolerance for bullshit. And in all fairness, the shockingly low level of consciousness of my fellow human. And granted, many of these people commenting might blow me away in bowling or sailing. Their net worth could very well be exponentially larger than mine. But seriously? Really? And then I ask myself, is it even worth my while? And my answer is usually no, which leads me to the conclusion that it is so satisfying to just let it out there and not even worry about all this shit. And that said, if I do get an opportunity to crack that code, either through algorithm or influencer, lucky break, that's something that happens somewhere in the multiverse. Maybe this universe will be one of those universes and maybe not. Sure, I'll take advantage. I'll go for it. I can talk to anybody. I can indulge any fancy, and I'm malleable. But where my yoga positions falter and where my otherwise flexible mind and body will break is in terms of doing what I really don't like to do. And what I really don't like to do is engineer my creativity to appease what would be perceived as the lowest common denominator of algorithmic triggering. Like, let's look at the numbers and let's adjust content accordingly. Let's focus not at all on the creator or what's being created, and just obsess about the audience and their reaction to the stimuli. No, thank you. I know people who are professional screenwriters. I had a friend of the family tell me that he could even connect me to people who do this kind of screenwriting, riffing. They're in the brainstorming bullpen, riffing ideas. Wouldn't I be in heaven? And the answer is no. I wouldn't be. I would rather do an analysis for a healthcare company to pay the rent. I would rather keep the day job and rant on the side than rant with the sole purpose of making somebody happy based on someone else's impression of what would make that person happy or triggered. And it's a price happily paid. And I would be so bold, and I'm going to cap this rant with the assertion that I have a higher probability in the multiverse of cracking that algorithmic code and influencing an influencer and really busting out so that I do create something of a community and a fan base and actually figure out how to make a living from this DIY digital tsunami obsession of mine, where my router is hot enough to boil an egg with all the shit that I'm cranking out daily. I have a feeling that I've got a better shot at doing that, getting monetized, and lo and behold, turning all of this into at least the semblance of a career by sticking to my guns. Rather than adapting to my conception of other people's conception about what could or should be popular, paying attention to the trends on the platforms, and writing and ranting, podcasting and blogging, and novel writing to expectation. Instead, just going with my mood, day to day, hour to hour, feeling that spark erupt between my ears and presumably between my legs, and just going for it. Having an idea, a flash, grabbing the camera, pointing it at my bald head and going for it, or swiveling the microphone around, hitting record, and just going for it. I don't know. Maybe yay and maybe nay, but today was a good day. I did a video or two. I processed another podcast. I'm recording this one just because I felt like it. And it makes my life have meaning. It makes me feel good while I do it. And I have faith, as part of the timestamp I did earlier, that even though I have no idea where it's headed, if anywhere, I know that, and I really believe that in the moment, it's glorious, and that momentum will carry me and presumably the people listening and absorbing this stuff to a place that we all find satisfying, maybe even joyful. Thanks for participating. More, much more to come.